Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-minute Histories videos. And today I'm on Utah Street in front of the new Lexington Market. If you have memories of Lexington Market, maybe it's getting a sandwich at Mary Mervin's or Barron's, maybe it's getting a bag of candies from Reb's, maybe it's the smell of roasting peanuts from Constance, and of course maybe it's a crab cake or two from Fadley's. It's been in the market since the 1880s. That's what we're going to talk about today, but I have to start with words that I almost don't believe are true, and that's that this is our 300th 5-minute history video. What started on the very first day of the pandemic as a way to desperately try to keep telling the important history and heritage of Baltimore has kind of taken on a life of its own. Over the last 300 videos, we've covered buildings like the Shot Tower, St. Michael's, the Archangel Ukrainian Church. We've covered somewhat wacky things like the Industrial Railroad Transfer Bridge in Canton, even ceramic cats, historic ceramic cats climbing up the outside of row houses. So thank you so much to everybody who's watched our videos, shared our videos, suggested topics, corrected me when I've gotten things wrong. Thank you. Here's to the first 300 videos, and here's to the next 300. So for today's video on this milestone, we thought we needed a big topic. And what bigger topic than Lexington Market? Maybe almost too big a topic. We are not going to nearly be able to cover everything. Consider this maybe chapter 1. We'll do some more. I have to say a big thank you also to Dean Krimmel and Pat Schulteis, two Baltimore historians who have done wonderful research. But let's jump in and start back in 1799. That's when a group of people who were moving into what was then called the Western Precincts, just outside of Baltimore City, started agitating for a market. Baltimore had 3 markets, market in Fells Point, one in the center city called Center Market, and the Hanover Market, sort of in South Baltimore, none near enough for them. And by 1804, they had persuaded the Maryland General Assembly to pass a law granting permission to start up a new market in the Western Precincts, and the law also appointed commissioners to oversee it. One of the commissioners, incidentally, was a Revolutionary War hero, John Eager Howard, who owned a ton of property, including a parcel that would go on to become part of the market. The commissioners had to raise $30,000 for this new venture, and they did it in a time-honored way, and that's with a public lottery. You bought a ticket, you probably didn't win the jackpot, and your ticket price went into the kitty to fund the construction of the market. By 1806, the lottery had done well enough that the General Assembly passed another law giving the commissioners the authority to pass laws in the new market area, which was Lexington Street from Utah over to Green, pretty much the same as it is today. Some of the new laws that the commissioners passed, or new rules, were that the market would be open on Tuesdays and Fridays, just those Tuesdays. In the spring and summer, it would open at dawn and close at 10 a.m. In the fall and winter, it would open at 1 and close at 4. The early years were successful for the market. The stalls rented at $18 for a butcher and $4 for a fishmonger, but the fishmonger just really got a table to put his wares out on. And the market made about $3,000 a year back then, which was not too bad. From its success, it attracted competitors. In 1823, Baltimore City passed a law prohibiting, quote, hucksters, hawkers, and peddlers. These were folks who set up their tables outside the market, selling the same things as the licensed vendors inside did, but for cheaper prices. By 1850, the market was flourishing. It had no fewer than 3 market sheds. Oliver Wendell Holmes dubbed Baltimore, quote, the gastronomic metropolis of the Union, and certainly Lexington Market was at the core of that accolade. We're now up to the era of the Civil War, and one question that people often ask is, were there human beings sold at the market? And thanks to the research of Dean Krimmel, we know that there was at least one person who was sold here. In March 30th, 1838, there was an advertisement for an auction here, including, quote, the sale of a Negro girl seized and taken as the property of Samuel Gaskins. The justice of the peace apparently seized Gaskins' property for a debt that he owed and sold it here at the market, including, quote, the Negro girl. We know that her name was Rosetta. We don't know what ultimately happened to her, but there is a wonderful memorial here as part of the new market, an outside sculpture by Aletha Devane and Christopher Kozer called Robert and Rosetta. Rosetta, for the young girl who was sold, Robert, for a freedom seeker who had run away from his enslaver. There was an advertisement trying to get him back, noting that he frequented Lexington Market, so we know those two connections to slavery for sure. After the Civil War, the market kept booming. There were a staggering 1,172 stalls, no fewer than 104 butchers. There were stalls inside. The market sheds had a center pedestrian aisle with vendors on either side, and there were stalls outside all down Lexington Street. In fact, today, if you look down when you're walking down Lexington Street, you can still see the stall numbers, the vendor numbers carved into the granite curbs there. There were also its shares of squabbles. One of the squabbles in the 1880s was over lunch stalls that were popping up in the market. A number of vendors thought cooking food was spoiling their fresh meats and produce. And in 1887, Baltimore City adopted a law prohibiting lunch stalls at Lexington Market, and exactly nobody took any mind of it. It was never enforced, and the lunch stalls continued. And it continued all the way up until 1938, when Baltimore City officially repealed that act, and slyly at the same time enacted a new tax on lunch stalls and market of $25 a year. One of the groups that was especially thankful for the lunch stalls were black Baltimoreans. In a 1928 Afro-American article, the Afro noted that the lunch stalls at Lexington Market were some of the few places where black Baltimoreans were allowed to eat. In the 1930s, we had some other sort of controversies. One over parking. Apparently, the car was now becoming king and parking spaces were hard to find. Another, people decrying that the stalls, some of the vendors were now selling canned foods, and that was not traditional at all. And then a big outcry over the outside stalls. People said they were taking up parking spaces and were a fire hazard. In 1942, the city shut down all of the outside vendors, and in typical Baltimore fashion, many of them simply ignored it and kept on doing their thing, all the way up until 1949, when a massive fire destroyed one of the two market buildings entirely and severely damaged the other. Baltimore City enacted a Quonset hut as a temporary market, and then in 1952 opened a new Lexington Market with an east building and a west building. In the opening ceremony, incidentally, a woman named Mary B. Windward won a 100-pound basket of food for being the oldest shopper at the market. She was 92. In 1958, we got air conditioning. In 1979, Ringling Brothers started bringing elephants to eat breakfast at the market, a tradition that continued until 2016. In 1982, we got a 64,000 square foot glass atrium as an addition to the market. It included two places for sit-down restaurants, and that was the last big change that the markets had until today. Today, we've torn down the glass atrium and erected a brand new, gorgeous market building on what was formerly the parking lot. So I will say it does not have 1,100 stalls. It has 50 stalls, but they are all occupied, except for Fadley's. They're still building their stall out. It is not open just Tuesday and Fridays. It is open 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., soon to be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. When people lament that we don't work as hard today as we used to, I'm not sure that applies to Lexington Market vendors. They're working hard now. So for the new timers, there are stalls that sell vegan food, chicken and waffles, dragon bowls. For the old timers, you can still get a Krause's turkey sandwich, that Thanksgiving meal wrapped up in one sandwich. You can get burgers, cookies from the burger stall, and you can get Trinacria deli food, that 100-year-old Italian deli with its main shop up the road. It's got a stall here. And soon you will be able to get Fadley's crab cakes in their newly tricked out stall as well. And for the real traditionalists, there are still butchers, there are still fish and seafood sellers, and still produce sellers as well. So I'm going to wrap up in saying, if you have not yet been to the new Lexington Market, put your shoes on now and come on down. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.